to Flourish-Meant, the podcast on living life as you are meant to, so you can flourish. Welcome to the show. Today I have a magnificent and highly respected guest. I'm so honored that Mimika Cooney has come to join us on Flourish-Meant today. She is a best-selling author. She is the founder of Platform Purpose, a membership club that helps authors and entrepreneurs leverage smart marketing to build their influence. And Huffington Post actually nominated her as one of the top 50 women entrepreneurs to follow. She is a branding and platform specialist, and she is an expert who has done many things in her area of platform with purpose. She has a new book due out in the fall of 2019, Build a Platform with Purpose, Marketing with Meaning for Messages with Heart. And today we've got her here to actually talk to you about how to share the message of your life. Welcome, Mimika.
Thanks for having me on the show, Tina. Always great to chat to you.
Tell us a little bit about what makes you so passionate about empowering and equipping people to fulfill their God-given purpose and share their message.
Yes, well, like everybody that walks this earth, whether past, present, or future, has a story, and that's what makes us unique. And, I really believe that, we're all born with a certain purpose and destiny we need to fulfill. And sometimes life can throw us some curveballs, or we get distracted, and maybe we sometimes end up in the wrong direction. But that's okay. What I really love to do is empower and equip people to figure out. It's kind of like putting pieces together, like a connect the dots, right? If you remember playing that game as a kid, it's kind of like playing how you put all the pieces together of your experiences. Because at the end of the day, there's people out there that you're meant to serve with your message, whether you are a writer or a speaker, or you're in business, or you have something to say. I think it's really valuable that a lot of us, especially when you have a good story and it can help others, to really just step up and say what we know we need to say. So hopefully we can dig into some actionable content for your listeners today to really help them do that.
If someone feels that their life is not as remarkable as, say, someone who won a gold medal in figure skating the way that you have, what would you say to that person who wonders if they really have a story to share?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest problems that I find with people that I work with, or friends, consultants, writers, is the issue of comparison. Now, the problem is, you can't compare yourself to anybody else's journey, because you don't know what they've had to go through to achieve what they've achieved, or to get to where they have gone to. And I think, especially in the online space, we have the likes of Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, and everyone looks like they're having, their lives are just so perfect when they're showing you their highlight reel. But believe me, that's not what resonates with people. People want to know, they want to hear your story from real people. And I think by being more authentic and tapping into who we are, especially when, you've had a journey that could help someone else. Because here's the thing, I find a lot of people discount their journeys because they think they're not some major, haven't achieved some awards, or, maybe they're just a stay-at-home mom who's raising 4 kids. But we don't know the effect of what those 4 kids are going to have on the world in the years to come. So I think, first of all, we need to stop discounting ourselves, stop discounting our abilities, and stop comparing. And I think once we kind of just, figure out where we are and stay in our lane, that's when we really are able to put those pieces together.
What would you say about helping someone discover what their story might be if they are lost in that process?
Yeah, it really depends on where you're at. And obviously, in life comes seasons, just like in nature. That's how God is. He designed the world around seasons, because we can't all be in the same place at the same time. And what I really have learned in my own walk, especially with God, is realizing that I can't want one for the next season, and I can't be too stuck to be ready to move to the next. Meaning that, if I've gone through something and I've experienced something and have been able to figure out tools or resources, or been able to find hope, in a hard place, I can guarantee you, if I look behind me, there's someone who's maybe just 1 or 2 steps behind me who's struggling with that. So, whether it's dealing with a rebellious teenager, or trying to potty train a 2-year-old, or trying to figure out how to start an online business, I can guarantee you someone else is struggling with that. And because you've been through it, and you think, because a lot of us assume that everybody knows what we know, but sometimes it's just thinking that who can I help, and looking around us to see how our value is seen valuable to someone else. And I think that's part of the piece, is just understanding that we do have value, that no matter what we've been through or what we've experienced, even with our skills, there is someone who really is eager to hear and to learn from it.
I love that. That's so simple and yet so profound. Understand that you have value. Find out what you have in your hand and look around you to see who you can help with it. Is that right?
Yeah, because I think a lot of us get so stuck in this comparison, looking outwards and thinking, well, so-and-so is doing that, Susie Q's doing that. And we don't know where he or she is on the process of that journey. And especially when you're walking with a purpose mind that, you want to get somewhere. And a lot of the time, I think we get confused about, okay, if I have these goals and I don't achieve them, then I'm a failure. I really want us to adjust our mindset when it comes to this idea of failure. There's a thing in the business world called failure faith. In other words, if you're not failing forward, you're not learning, because the best ways that we learn is through our mistakes. Like if I had to, go through something, I'm learning skills, and then I can turn around and teach somebody else that. But at the same token, if I want to learn something and shorten my learning curve, I can look to someone else who's already been through that and learn from their mistakes. So I think if we just change how we think about ourselves and the value that we offer to people, and realize that it's how we position ourselves in our own mind, and realize that, okay, I've been through this hard thing. How do I move past this, and how do I help other people through the process? I think that's really where breakthrough comes. It really starts with the mindset.
So we need a growth mindset, not a beginning and end mindset. We need to always be looking for where the opportunity is in every failure.
Yes, and also not thinking of it as a failure. I mean, if you think about Edison when he designed the light bulb, I think there was an interview, I have to find where it was online, but I remember reading this a few years ago, that someone had asked him, you've made a lot of mistakes in finding out, how a light bulb works. And he says, I don't think of them as mistakes. They were just 1,000 experiments that didn't work that got me closer to figuring out how it did work. So by just changing the way we look at things and saying, even though it didn't work this time, what can I learn from it for the next stage of my life, or how can what I've learned help someone else? So yeah, it definitely starts with that.
Do you have any personal examples of how you had to overcome challenges or mistakes in order to be successful in your field?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. I started selling chocolates at the age of 16, and I don't make a very good employee because I like to be in charge. You can tell I'm a little bossy, but I like it that way. I'm also a creative. I spent 15 years as a professional photographer, and I've been a writer since I was a kid, always, writing these creative stories. And I've always loved to do things that challenge me. Like you mentioned earlier about figure skating. I always laugh about this, and people go like, what? I'm 43. I know, I'm dating myself. But I started figure skating when I was 33 because this was one of those life goals that I always wanted to learn how to do it, but I never did it as a child. But I thought, I'm not going to let my age change, stop me from achieving that. So over the last 10 years, I've really just put the effort in. Every week I show up at the rink, whether I feel like it or not, whether I'm tired or injured or, moody. I just make sure that I show up and I do the work. That's really what it comes down to, is making this decision that this is what you want to do, and then putting in the work. And the other thing, as I always say, is, skating is like life. You're going to fall down. But the thing is, what you need to do is just pull yourself back up and get up and go again. And even though life feels like you're skating on thin ice, and it's kind of a balancing act of figuring this whole thing called life, or adulting, as I say to my teenage kids, is like, this adulting thing doesn't come with an operations manual. You kind of have to just figure it out, just like you have to figure out parenting. But I always feel like, being able to understand my story and what I've learned in the process is really is a key to helping someone else find their breakthrough. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know the power, and especially in the Christian communities, we talk about a testimony, sharing how you've gone through a test and come out with triumphant and learn something is really, really valuable for somebody else.
That's another way of reframing those things that we may be tempted to call failures, is calling them instead a test that we can overcome in order to help someone else more on the other side of it. So getting through it may seem impossible, but it's worth it because you know that someone else is going to need you to keep moving on. Looking at our lives as being part of somebody else's need instead of just on our own, fighting through this just for our own sake, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, pretty much is just reframing of the way we think about ourselves and our story really is the key to it all.
So once we've looked at our lives and we've decided that maybe I do have something of value, maybe these tests and these trials that I've overcome can be an inspiration to somebody else. Once you identify that and you're willing to have that growth mindset, what are some practical ways that we can begin to share that story with other people?
Definitely. Well, this is where it gets exciting, right? Once you've got over that initial stage, like just like when somebody is grieving, you have to allow yourself to go through the process. The same thing as if you've overcome some personal adversity, you need to know that you're ready to share your story. Example would be like a few years ago, I was in the middle of running my business, and then I had it was actually 2016. I had a really rough year where in the space of 6 weeks, I had one of my teenage kids threatening suicide, and my mother-in-law who passed away from cancer. Now, all of those things totally rocked my faith, my confidence. At the same time as well, I had a failure in my business where I did a launch. I'd spent all this money trying to promote a new product I was selling, and it tanked. So it was like a trifecta where I literally just couldn't do it anymore. And after 10 years of I've been in hustle mode because I, always going from one thing to another, never gave myself time to breathe. Literally, physically, my body came to a total standstill, and I literally hit burnout. And I just could not continue. And it's really I wouldn't suggest you do that, push yourself beyond your limits and get to that stage without, listening to the signs. But I had to go through the process. And subsequent to that, I actually wrote a book actually two books I wrote during that learning phase, because I'm a very good avid journaler. I like to journal, and since I was a kid, I've always made notes, and as a way of remembering things. And through that process, by writing a book and how I was able to overcome that fear and overcome all that anxiety and all the issues from past trauma from my childhood, I'd realized there was a story and there was tools I had developed that I could help someone else. So through that, I'd recognize, you have to recognize when you're ready to share it. In other words, if you still feel hurt from someone cutting you and you bleeding on the page, someone else is going to be affected by that. So in other words, make sure that you are ready at that stage, that perhaps, through like the grief process, you've come to acceptance that you can actually share the story, especially when it's from a personal side, especially when there is something personal that you are sharing, and you want to be able to feel you can confidently share it without getting upset, or that you're not bitter or resentful, or you are ready to share it. So once you're at that stage, then you can kind of document what you've been through as a journey. And then ways of sharing a story is, writing a book. To me, that's one of the best ways of sharing your expertise with people, that has a longevity approach, because books, I think, are one of the best tools we have out there. They will live long past your lifetime. I mean, you see of all the names of people who have passed on who are still influencing people today. And that's why, being able to document that is super important. You could share your story online. I mean, the likes of videos exploded in the last few years, that people love to know a little bit about your life. I mean, if you look at YouTube, there are millions and millions of channels that are very specific to a certain niche. I mean, you can sit there and scroll for hours and find something that interests you, whether it's learning how to decorate a cake or how to train your dog. I mean, there are so many life lessons to be learned there. So it's really just depending on who you are, who your message resonates with, and who else you want to help. And I think by putting those pieces together, you can realize, what have I learned, and what are the life lessons that if I was sitting one day with my grandchild on my lap and she would say, "Grandma, tell me the story of your life." And I'd go, "Once upon a time, there was this girl who did this. This is how she started. This is what she learned." If you think of your life story like a movie, what are those pivotal moments that you want to share and you want to be able to inspire people with? And I think that's a great way to kind of start the framework of your actual story.
Well, let me go back and just kind of summarize some of the things because you had some really great pieces that you brought up. First of all, you mentioned making sure that you have journaled through the gut wrenching parts of your story and you found enough healing that you can offer someone hope and value and encouragement. And if you're not in that place, working with a counselor or a therapist to get to that place before you share that story through a vehicle of a book or online messaging would be more helpful to your audience. There's a place for journaling where you're just pouring it out to be cathartic for yourself. And then there's a separate step toward getting to that healed place where you're not just sharing bitterness and angst, you're sharing hope. So that was one thing that I thought was really important that I wanted to make sure everybody heard that. I also know of some authors that work with a therapist when they're writing their book. I talked with someone this week who was actually on the Today Show with their book, and they had worked with a therapist as a co-author on their story because they wanted to make sure that it was a story that would bring healing to other people. And as a therapist, I've worked with people on books. So that's something to look into if you feel like there might be pieces in your story that could trigger others, or where you might not quite yet be healed, or if writing that story could be a difficult process for you, you might want to look into that. So I wanted to highlight what you said about that because that was so good and so important. And there was another piece about that, about sharing on social media. That may be a good place for you to test what your audience is looking for and find out which parts of your story would make good chapters for your book, wouldn't it be?
Oh yeah, definitely. And as I say, things have changed a lot, especially with online media. Like you don't have to go through the process of writing a finished book or creating a whole course or creating a whole business model unless you've tested it. Like I've totally changed my format and the way that I do things. Like and this is the advice that I give to my students in platform purpose is the membership site where we walk you through this process because I want to make sure you're writing the right book. Because sometimes what we do, and in actual fact, I had a conversation with an author this morning that was about, well, I already know that I've got this amazing story of where I overcome these adversities and I want to write a memoir. Now, the problem with that is that, first of all, memoirs don't sell if you're an unknown. Like unless you are Joanna Gaines that's got a massive online following and people are just gagging to hear about your story and your backstory or you're some celebrity in some way. It's really hard to be able to sell, especially when you look at it as a chronological life story. But it's a good thing, I would say. I know you're a writing coach, and I'm sure you would agree with me here, is that to at least document your life story in chronological order, but to find what are those lessons or micro moments that would be useful to someone else. So once we figure that out, then we can kind of move on to figuring out who we're actually serving. Because another mistake I see authors make is writing the wrong book, writing it for themselves because they want to write the book because perhaps maybe it is what I would call a vanity project. And that's not a bad thing either. Perhaps they want to share their story just to kind of as a cathartic exercise, as to kind of for posterity, for their grandchildren one day, they want to at least share their whole story, which is great too. But at the same time, if you're thinking about sharing your story as ways of helping people, whether it's becoming a counselor or a writer or a speaker or creating a product or a business around a need, you really need to go where the audience is. So that's also key is by posting a little bit about your life and your story and asking people, simply just asking them online, like, have this idea, what do you think? If you've got friends on Facebook, that's the first place you need to start. And then, of course, as you start to build your platform and people get to know you more, then you can do that. So part of my process now is before I even write a book is I ask everyone, what are you struggling with? Like, what is this thing that you need help with? And let me see if I can help you. And there I'm able to say, okay, what part of my life story did I overcome fear? Or what part of my life story did I overcome grief? Or where are the life lessons that I can share? And who is searching for that need right now? Like if, newly married couples, like perhaps if I was married young and I've got some advice I could offer there too. So kind of thinking, who am I speaking to? And then really writing for the reader. Because at the end of the day, if you're writing a book or you have a product that's servicing a need or solving a problem, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it. So you don't waste time and money and lots of resources on creating something that nobody wants.
Absolutely. I love the way that you said that. Say that again about servicing a need or solving a problem. Is that the way that you framed that?
Yes. So like whether it's like, I mean, most businesses these days are designed around providing a need, filling a need. Or as I say, find a need and fill it. Like who's in need, who needs something that I have to offer, and how could I help them? And even if you don't have the skills or the resources, but you see a need, you can create the need, you can figure out the ways of finding the tools for the people who are asking for that. So you can then go around and turn around and help them. So instead of us thinking of it as ourselves, like I have the story, I want to share this, that really comes from a place of validation. Like I know I've been through something hard in my life. I need the validation from others to say, yes, you did a great job. Wow, that was a really hard thing you went through, which is good too, because you get to that stage of acceptance. But moving past that is when you get into service. Like when you know that you are there to serve others, you flip the script on it and you start to think about it from the reader's perspective. Things look a lot different to when you are either writing a book or producing a product, when you come from it and look at it through the eyes of the person who has a need. So I think that's a really important part. There's kind of the stages you go through. Then once you start to see that, then you can taste it and see if what you have to offer or what the idea you have is really going to resonate with people. And that would be the best thing to do before you even start with step one. So hopefully that's helpful.
Before you even write the book, doing the testing online with social media audiences can help you and keep you from having to do a lot of rewriting after you wrote the book. So that can be extremely time saving, even though it seems like it's going to take extra time.
Exactly. I'd say, before you even go down the route of getting it all out, because there seems to be, especially in the author space, like we'll just write the book and then let's figure out who you can sell it to. Like now I've changed my format. Like in actual fact, the last few days I've spent like 3 solid days just in heavy, what I call forensic research, trying to figure out categories and keywords for my next book that I want to write. And in part of that discovery, I discovered there's a section of that people are searching for that I didn't include in the book. That I'm like, you know what, I need to put a whole section in this book that covers that. And originally I didn't think it was important, but now that I've realized that people are actually searching for it, I need to make sure I include that, as well as excluding some things that I thought were important. And I was like, well, okay, I just deleted 2 whole chapters or an outline for 2 chapters because I had thought I would have to spend the time. So again, it works. It's so important to start with research. No matter what the end result's going to be, start with your audience, figure out what people want, and then find a way of giving them what they want and adjusting things. So then when your book comes out or you launch your product, or people are ready and eager to buy, because who wants to launch a book or go through all that effort in crickets, right? That's nobody I know wants to have a flop. So definitely start with that first.
And it's not just about sales. It's about living a life of service to others. Our whole life story can be one that is providing benefit and blessing to everyone around us. When you're sharing that life story in a meaningful way, in a way that resonates, then you're going to be giving people a blessing. You're lifting people up. You're meeting their needs. And that is what everyone finds most fulfilling in life if they're able to do that. So I love that you've brought that out and that you've helped us to have some practical, actionable steps. Are there any other very key things that people need to know about sharing their life story in a meaningful, impactful way?
Well, I think really is the advice is just to start doing it. And one of the big things that I see that holds people back is fear of being vulnerable, because we think we have to be this picture perfect cookie cutter of what people expect online. At the end of the day, I have really found that being honest and open and being vulnerable to share your story could seem scary, but believe me, people are more they value that more than you trying to look like you've got it all together. Like, I found that my audience grew and people resonated with my message more so where I show my failures and my mistakes. Like when I'm online, I don't care about fancy outfits and hair and makeup. I'm going to just be me. Like you're going to see me in my sweatpants, and I will just, the way I speak is the way I write. That is me, because I don't want to have to filter who I am to make somebody else happy. And once I'd realized that my story is valuable just the way that it is, and the way that I share it is valuable, it was such a huge relief that I felt like I didn't have to be something I wasn't. I didn't have to show up a certain way that I think everyone expected me to, and that I didn't have to worry about being embarrassed, because I can guarantee you there are tens, if not millions of people out there who are going through that, who are feeling that shame of like, I can't let people know that I'm a totally tanked. I can't let people know that this thing failed or I'm messed up here. And they almost feel like if we're not this perfect facade, that people won't like us. So as long as we've got to that stage and we feel like, okay, I can get over myself, I've realized this, what I have to say is much more important. Then I think it really helps you break through that sort of fear of not appearing perfect and just really breaking you through. So give yourself permission to share your story, and give yourself permission to start, because you don't need an invitation from anyone. Consider today your invitation. This is your invitation to say you need to step up and start to share what you have to say, because what you have to say is valuable. And put it this way, someone else is praying for a breakthrough to a problem they have, and you are their solution. So by you holding back, by you not actually sharing your story of how you were able to overcome them, you are depriving them of a breakthrough. So when you think of it that way, it really helps you to value what you have to say. So go ahead and do that today.
I love the invitation and the challenge and the reminder that you could be depriving someone of a benefit that they could receive from your words, that by holding it back, we're not just being fearful or being humble, we're being selfish because we're not giving other people something that we have that could bless them. And I think instead of fear, we can look at love, and love is what overcomes fear. If you think about that one, just picture that one person out there who is where you were, and see her and hear her and know that she needs what you have to say. Your love for that woman, that friend, that neighbor, that community member, that person on the other side of the ocean, whoever she might be, can help you overcome that initial fear and anxiety so that it's worth it to go past that fear, to press through and to share your story. Do you feel like love for others has helped you overcome your fears?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, love conquers all, right? Once I had realized that what I had been through had value and that I didn't have to sit there and be a victim, I could be a victor. And that's a big thing, is why I say mindset's important. You need to move past that victim mentality where you feel like, woe is me, this is what's happened to me, everyone should feel sorry for me. That's not the validation that you need. And that's not the kind of validation that's going to really feed your soul or your spirit or your well-being. You need to find the validation of seeing what you do, and by helping someone else get their breakthrough. That is the most valuable validation you can get, that yes, your story mattered because it helped X, Y, and Z number of people overcome their situation. And once, we look back at our lives, then we'll appreciate that. But once you put that into perspective, everything else falls into place.
Yes, because being stuck in your pain and being stuck in your bitterness and your resentment doesn't help you, and it doesn't help anyone else.
Exactly.
So I love that challenge to get past that potential rut that we can get stuck in so easily, of that victim mentality. You can be a victim and become a victor. So it's important to think about that. I'm so glad that you've come on to share this wisdom and insight. You have so much to offer your audiences, and I hope that everyone comes to find you where you are. What are some of the best places that people can reach you and follow you and get in on all the amazing things that you're doing?
Yes, well, the best place to find me is at my home base, which is my website, which is mimikacooney.com. And I'll spell that for you. It's MIMIKACOONEY.com. And I have a bunch of freebies and resources that I'm constantly updating. There's also links to my book as well as my courses and membership site. So, and I have my own podcast too. And you were one of my guests as well, who offered a very valuable teaching there. So if you want to listen to Tina's interview on my show called Mimika TV, you can go to my blog as well at mimikacooney.com. And on social media, I'm everywhere at Mimika Cooney, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. All of those resources you can find and connect with me online. I'd love to hear from you.
Tell us a little bit about the newest projects that you have coming up. I know you have a book that's launching soon. Tell us a little bit about that and your master classes and things that people can access.
Yeah, well, definitely what I have done is I have put together a plethora of courses and that I've put together in a membership site called Platform Purpose, because I really believe that, building a platform where you can reach other people Especially when you have a purpose in mind of helping other people. I've designed it, especially for nonfiction Christian writers. It really does have a lot of that support there. And really, the book is the start of that. So the book is How to Build Your Platform with a Purpose. And it's really to help Christian authors find their message, what their story is. So everything we've talked about today is covered in the book. And to help you take those steps of, whether it's publishing a book or becoming a speaker or, starting a business, is to really put those pieces together and set to, because I don't know about you, I love checklists and being able to tick off things off my list and go through a systematic process so I can build a foundation that will really last for the years to come. So every time I come up with a new project. So if that's something of interest, definitely look me up online and I'd love to be able to support you.
Thank you, Mimika. I'm so glad that you came on today and shared that with us. And I know I'm looking forward to hearing more from you. You always have something insightful and great expertise to share. So I look forward to continuing to be involved with you and all of your amazing projects, and all of the books and the resources that you have to offer are going to be of great value and benefit to everyone listening here today. So I hope they all take advantage of that. And I hope that all of you come back again for another episode of Flourish-Meant.